Worried about what ingredients are hiding in your groceries? Let us take the guesswork out. We're Thrive Market, the online grocery store with the highest quality standards in the industry. We restrict 1,000 plus ingredients, so you can trust that you'll only find the best high-quality, organic, and sustainable brands, all free of the junk. With savings up to 30% off and fast carbon-neutral shipping, you get top trusted groceries at your door, and you can stop worrying about what your kids get their hands on. Start shopping at thrivemarket.com/podcast for 30% off your first order and a free gift.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Sunday 7. On today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we check in on the moon's busy schedule, find out about a breakthrough in allergy medication, and meet some colossal woolly mice. Plus, Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's resident tech guru, explains why the BBC are going all in on AI and who's behind those annoying Facebook scam ads. If you're enjoying the episodes, please do like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7. But before we get started, it was on this day in 1822 that Mr. Charles M. Graham of New York filed the first US patent for artificial teeth. Early dentures were made of ivory, carved in the shape of human teeth, including one set made from hippopotamus ivory with gold wire springs and brass screws. That is quite the mouthful. It's been a busy week up there in space. We had a SpaceX Starship explode during a test flight, and we've had not one but 2 landings on the moon. This year's a big year for lunar exploration in particular, with about a dozen landers due to touch down on the moon's surface. This week saw Texas-based Intuitive Machines land their second lander called Athena, which touched down near the moon's south pole. Unfortunately, much like their first attempt last year, the lander appears to have toppled over, and it's not clear how the mission's going to progress. Another Texas company, Firefly Aerospace, seems to have had more success with its Blue Ghost lander, which touched down at a smooth basin known as Mare Crisium. And they went all out on the landing with high-definition video and a dramatic mission control commentary at a NASA landing event.
Blue Ghost Riders, path to the stars is no longer limited to nations alone. Firefly is building the road to the next frontier, one mission and one dream at a time. Tonight, we didn't just reach another mission milestone. Together, we created a moment in history.
Dr. Nicola Fox is the Associate Administrator for NASA's Science Mission Directorate, and she explained why Blue Ghost has picked a near-side landing site from the launch event.
We choose our landing sites very carefully. Our CLIPS landers will go to the South Pole, to the near side, to the far side. This one in this really perfect location. We want to study the geological features on the moon. We want to study the interaction with the solar wind. We want to just learn more about the regolith. We want to be able to prepare for our future astronauts to go and keep them safe. And so we chose the science instruments perfectly to go to this incredible place on the moon.
The Blue Ghost mission's packed with NASA scientific instruments, including a lunar planet vac, which will literally hoover up moon dust for analysis, along with radiation-hardened computer chips and an experimental GNSS receiver, which hopes to be able to pick up data from GPS satellites. Joel Kearns is the Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration at NASA, and he says the landing site could be hugely useful in terms of scientific data.
So we're landing in a place that's of great scientific interest, but it was also in a very achievable place to land. And there are studies that range from studies of the sun that we'll conduct from the surface of the moon, studies of the abrasive dust of the regolith. We're going to drill into the surface. We're going to pick up regolith. It was going to answer so many questions over this one lunar day-long mission. It's going to be really one for the history books.
CEO of Firefly Aerospace is Jason Kim, and while he's delighted to see his lander safely touch down, he says that lunar exploration's a team effort and that the lessons learned from the series of lunar landings can be put to good use.
We're all in this together. We want to make sure that there's more and more of these missions to the moon, and anything's possible. These are scalable missions to Mars as well.
It's that time of the week when we download the biggest stories in tech and comb through the details with the fine-toothed wit of the Smart 7's tech guru Will Guyatt. This week we've got some extremely effective Facebook scammers, trouble for Starlink, and some sneaky cheating chess-playing AI. Morning, Will. Let's start with this rather dramatic announcement from the BBC on Thursday that they're going to be all in with an AI news department. What on earth is going on?
BBC News is creating a new department with a focus on AI, looking to create content for under 25s because of a huge shift in news consumption to smartphones and platforms like TikTok.
The BBC News boss, Deborah Turner, says that BBC News have been defying gravity. What the hell does that mean? Are Ariana and Cynthia holding a space for Newsnight?
So the boss said she was acting fast to tackle the growing trends of news avoidance, the growth of news consumption on social platforms, increased digital competition and inevitable broadcast decline. She sounds like a barrel of fun, doesn't she? And it's hard to know what this really means right now. I don't think this means we're getting AI bulletins yet, but who knows, that might be the thing they try on BBC Three.
Well, maybe the news is just a lot right now. How's AI going to help with that, though?
Given everything going on in the world right now, I do sympathise with those who decide to look away from the news, but it looks like the BBC wants to use artificial intelligence to tailor content the way you like it, in the same way as many of us have carefully tailored the algorithm on our social media platforms, and it's also going to use AI to aid and shape their decisions on how we get our news in the future.
OK, tell me about these pesky Facebook scammers. They almost got away with 35 million quid, and 20 of that was probably my grandma's.
Everybody knows there's a den of thieves circulating around social media these days, and we've got to keep our eyes open. There's that offer of the free Range Rover in return for the like or share of the Facebook page. The person attempting to flog you their bargain Ford Fiesta on Marketplace. But how about those posts that encourage you to invest in cryptocurrencies? They've now duped hundreds of thousands of us across Europe. A report late last week showed the true extent of these crypto scams, with over £33 million being lost to crypto scams across Europe over the last 3 years, despite them being made illegal.
They used some pretty famous faces though, right? None of whom I imagine knew anything about it.
That's right, everybody's favourite money-saving expert Martin Lewis, Radio Zoe Ball and the adventurer Ben Fogle were among the treasure trove of deepfakes that were used to promote these dodgy cryptocurrency scams, and despite Brits being stung for over 9 million here in the UK, it's only been over the last year or so that celebrities have been raising the alarm when it comes to the danger of deepfakes and scam ads.
Well, we've seen a lot more Elon Musk than anybody needs to really, but it seems like things might be turning against him in the Oval Office. Has Trump run out of patience with Doge?
Given that a minute seems a long time in the Trump administration, it's hard to tell exactly what's going on. But last Thursday, the president delivered a clear message to his main team. You run your department, not Elon Musk. And perhaps most importantly, this message was delivered with Musk in the room and without cameras, which Trump normally loves. It was during this session that Trump confirmed that while Elon could make recommendations on how departments could save money and become more efficient, he was not able to make unilateral decisions on policies and who were hired and fired, as it would appear he was previously doing. Some say Elon was already aware that this message was coming from his boss, as he's spoken about Doge making mistakes and missteps in its early days. But the language used by Trump about Doge is now very different. We'd previously saw Elon blundering around with a chainsaw to demonstrate the cuts he was planning to make on the US administration, but now Trump says Doge's work will take a scalpel rather than a chainsaw to the administration.
And I know this does seem like the perfect metaphor, but are Starlink satellites really falling to Earth?
Indeed they are, and according to Elon's SpaceX, it's entirely normal that they don't burn up when re-entering Earth's atmosphere. Musk's company has literally been spraying thousands of these satellites into orbit over the last few years, and now the earliest ones are ready to be retired, despite being just 5 years old. While other companies deorbit satellites, they typically burn up and you don't end up with a load of old kit on your lawn. SpaceX had previously said its satellites were engineered to fully demise during atmospheric re-entry and were of no risk to the public. But they now concede that small fragments can end up flying towards Earth, and that potentially means it could hit my shed. Don't worry though, they say it's less than a 1 in 100 million chance of human life being endangered, while at the same time confirming an American man found a 2.5 kilogram piece of aluminium on his land, and that had fallen from space. So much for fast internet, right?
Finally, Will, before I let you get on with your day, we mightn't trust AI, but I don't think we were expecting it to start cheating, were we?
There's some considerable surprise among researchers that many of the large language models behind the chatbots we love already possess the ability to manipulate or circumvent the tasks we're setting them, to the extent that some AI models are now trying to cheat to stop themselves losing games of chess. The suggestion that a sci-fi-esque rise of the robots with AI taking control has always been poo-pooed by the big tech companies, but this independent research has done risk assessments on leading AI systems and leads to some fairly worrying conclusions. The current AI models aren't a patch on the supercomputers from back in the day that beat chess grandmasters, but they like to think they are. Now, earlier generations of our AI models would only cheat chess when they were prompted by humans, but the newer versions are doing it for themselves, often without prompt and sometimes without admission too. It's not moving pieces while you aren't looking, it's literally attempting to rewrite the code on which the chess game was being played. And with this news and Elon's falling satellites, I'm off to build a bunker.
Cheers, Will. See you next week. Still to come on the Sunday 7, good news on allergies and a surprising use for mine water. Food allergies have been on the rise across the world, and it's estimated about 1% of the population have a severe food allergy which could result in death. But scientists have been working hard to tackle the issue, with programmes underway to desensitise children to potentially dangerous foods in a programme called oral immunotherapy. That sees patients gradually consuming very small amounts of the potentially hazardous food so that immunity builds up over time. Now, a new study from Stanford Medicine suggests there may also be another treatment route which has proved effective in trials in the United States. The treatment involves the drug omalizumab, which is sold in the US as Xolair and was originally intended for asthma treatment, but it may also be effective when it comes to allergies. Sharon Chinthrajah is the Associate Professor of Medicine at the Sean N. Parker Center for Allergy and Asthma Research in the US.
Food allergies affects 2 kids in every classroom and 1 in 10 adults. Over the last few decades, we've seen food allergies on the rise. Xolair is a familiar drug for our allergy community. It's been used for patients who suffer from asthma or urticaria. It's an anti-IgE, so it actually takes the IgE antibodies out of circulation. And without those antibodies, we thought patients who have food allergies who are exposed to the foods that they're allergic to would have no reactions to the food or less severe reactions to the food. Having a drug that has the potential to reduce allergic reactions and the severity in 2/3 of patients is amazing. And it's not just to one food, it's to multiple foods.
Annabelle Terry's a patient at the centre, and she's been getting injections of the drug every 2 weeks to test its impact on her nut allergy.
I've been told to stay away from nuts my entire life. Like, the consequences would be terrible. I had to be on guard all the time. Being in this study has been really kind of helpful because I've seen a different light of nuts and now I'm not as afraid of them as I was before. It makes me feel pretty good knowing I'm not going to get sick as easily, and it just makes me happy because I can do what I want.
Now, if I say mine water, you're probably not picturing a glass of clear, refreshing liquid. And you'd be right. Mine water's literally water from a mine, and it's usually full of minerals or salt. And once the mine closes, the water needs to be pumped out to avoid flooding. But it turns out that mine water might actually have a role to play in heating homes, and a new pilot scheme in Durham involving about 750 houses is underway. Martin Wilkes is Climate Change Councillor at Durham County Council, and he explains how the scheme's going to work.
So at the moment the water that comes up out of the ground from the old mine workings is about 20 degrees, and we have to clean that water before discharging it out to sea to protect groundwater supplies. But all of the heat is dissipating out into the atmosphere. So this project will take the heat out of that water, it'll go through an energy centre and heat exchangers, and it'll be able to provide heat for 750 homes, plus a school and other shopping areas as well.
Richard Bond's the Innovation and Services Director at the Mining Remediation Authority, and he says if it does work, there's enormous potential for an untapped resource.
So I think it's quite amazing for everybody that's involved in this, because I think not only are you repurposing something and potentially providing economic regeneration and green jobs back into those areas that were associated with coal mining, but actually creating clean energy from the coal mines. In the UK, we have got over 30,000 old mines. Now, not all of them can be used because there's different forms of mining, there's different geology around them, but the potential for the UK is incredible.
Still to come on the Sunday 7, some simple tools to defeat dementia and how scientists plan to bring back the woolly mammoth.
Right after this. Applebee's has a brand new Big Easy menu. It features all your Bourbon Street favorites in one new menu. Plus a new Bourbon Street chicken and andouille sausage penne starting at just $11.99. With Cajun flavors sure to get your taste buds dancing. Applebee's is bringing Bourbon Street to your street. Make sure to try the Big Easy menu now. Only at Applebee's. Only at Applebee's.
Limited time. Price, participation, and selection may vary.
Welcome back. A new study on dementia from New York University raises some worrying issues. The study estimates Americans' risk of developing dementia after the age of 55 is more than double what was originally thought, and they're predicting America could see 1 million new cases by the year 2060. Dr. Joseph Koresh is the director of the Optimal Aging Institute at NYU's Langan Health System. And he says while the study's alarming, there are 14 simple ways to prevent dementia developing.
Early in life, we talked about more education to create cognitive reserve. You want to avoid traumatic brain injury, both early, middle, and late life, sports injuries, and later in life falls. Once you hit your head hard enough, you need to allow your brain to recover, or otherwise you have an increased risk of dementia. In midlife and later, vascular risk factors prevent diabetes, no smoking, less alcohol, blood pressure control and low blood pressure is critical, cholesterol and obesity. Later in life, sensory losses, hearing and vision, correcting those should really help. And as you get to very late in life, social isolation, depression, addressing those issues, and then later teamwork in terms of caring for people can allow lots of people, even with the onset of dementia, the majority of people in early stages stay at home, can be cared for by family members, and with the correct teamwork and medication be managed quite well.
Meanwhile, a new tool's been developed by doctors in the Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health in Las Vegas, which will help to detect early signs of dementia so that patients can begin remedial measures. The tool uses neurocognitive adaptation and a sequence of 140 questions to identify patterns in patients. Dr. Jessica Caldwell says it's important to know if you're going to have an issue.
If someone avoids thinking about Alzheimer's, especially if it runs in your family, what can happen is you lose out on an opportunity to really change your behavior and reduce your risks.
This week, the UK's data watchdog launched a major investigation into TikTok and how it uses children's personal information. The inquiry will focus on how the platform uses children's data to recommend content for them and to encourage them to spend longer on the app. TikTok says it has strict and comprehensive measures to protect teenagers, but UK Information Commissioner John Edwards says the investigation could result in a fine or in enforcing a change in the way that the data is handled. He says it's really important parents can have faith in the protection his office provides.
We find very low levels of confidence in our surveys amongst parents that the processing is safe or that they understand what's happening with their children's data. And we are responding to that. And we've been working in this space for some time. We issued a call for evidence on the way that recommender systems use children's data back in April last year, but we have been continuing this direction of travel since the Children's Code was enforceable in 2022.
The topic of social media for teens has become increasingly important, with Australia already implementing a ban for under 16s. The government here has been considering it, but there's also a concern that a full ban could leave teens feeling left out of what is increasingly a central part of society. There may be an alternative though, particularly when it comes to social media during school hours. Julian Drinkall is the CEO of the GALF Schools Academy Trust, and they've been trying a new app designed to allow temporary cut-offs of social media and messaging apps for kids in school.
Blackout is simply a pilot. It's a research and development. It's a pioneering innovation attempt to work out how we can get the best use of technology without an outright ban. Parents are behind it, so we're trialling it and we're going to be taking lots of feedback. We literally just started it this last half term and we'll be doing it over the course of a couple of terms. 4 different schools, 2,300 students. We've deliberately restricted it to years 7, 8 and 9, so no one's involved in high-stakes GCSEs or A-levels or BTECs. But the idea is to get the feedback, and those 4 secondary schools are incredibly different in terms of pupil characteristics, community, etc., etc. So we're in listening mode.
What kid hasn't wanted to have a mammoth as a pet? Okay. Well, the long-extinct woolly mammoth may not be extinct for much longer, as the species joins the scientific race for what's called de-extinction. Australian scientists have begun working on bringing back a Tasmanian tiger called the thylacine, and now scientists at the appropriately named Colossal, a de-extinction startup, have made progress in the first step towards bringing back the mammoth. And that first step has been to create what they're calling colossal woolly mice, complete with shaggy fur and golden coats. Ben Lamb's the CEO and founder of Colossal Biosciences, and he explains why they started with editing mouse genes.
We've been editing our Asian elephant cells with mammoth alleles now for about 2.5 years. But what the woolly mouse does is it proves that our end-to-end process of understanding computational biology from this ancient DNA, making the edits, and then screening the embryos so that they're healthy and we produce living, healthy animals works. And it also worked in 1 month. Right now, it's obviously clear that we can see the hair woolliness, as we like to call it, in terms of the texture, the thickness, and the different ways it grows. We can also see they're slightly fatter and a little bit larger, so that goes into the lipid metabolism genes that we've edited from the mammoths. And then we can also see, obviously, the color, which is the color that mammoths are when you pull them from the permafrost and clean all the muck off of them. But what's really interesting is over the next 6 to 12 months, once we get approval from our ethics board and our IACUC board, we'll actually start to do behavioral tests versus wild-type mice with feeding them different diets, increasing the temperature just a little bit to see how they behave in these different environments, to see if they do prefer cold tolerance. And that'll be another signal that we're on the right track with some of our mammoth edits that we're making in the Asian elephant genome.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
Applebee's has a brand new Big Easy menu. It features all your Bourbon Street favorites in one new menu. Plus a new Bourbon Street chicken and andouille sausage penne starting at just $11.99.
Limited time price, participation, and selection may vary.